Hi everybody, welcome back. Today I'm hoping to finish the story. So we left off where they were just about to pull the ship to see if it would move. But my ship, she is big, she is heavy. It's just not possible, said the captain. The Sandman said nothing, but turned to Dadsy and Auntie Larry. If you don't mind, I'll be needing that rock you're sitting on. Dadsy and Auntie Larry stood up and moved away. Of course, I haven't had me breakfast yet, said the Sandman, breathing in and out through his teeth and flexing his fingers. But let's see what I can do all the same. And with that, he bent down, slipped his arms under a rock and lifted it to shoulder height, and then balancing it on the palm of one hand, he tossed it over the submarine and out into the sea beyond, where it landed with a great showering splash. All of us looked at each other for a moment. See, said Polly proudly. Jumping Jehovah, said Dadsy. The Sandman looked very pleased with himself. It's like this, he said. Me and the boys, that's me darling turtles out there, we'd be happy to help you out. But it's like me old mother always said, you scratch my back and I'll scratch yours, if you see what I'm saying. You could tell from the look on his face that Captain Sergei Ivanovich Prokofiev hadn't a clue what the Sandman meant. Well, how shall I put it, said the Sandman. Will you take a look out there? That's me old coracle that brought me over from Ireland, and it's all upside down and no use at all anymore. So I was wondering, maybe if I give you a little push and me boys out there were to give you a little pull, then maybe you could take me back home to Ireland in your cucumber. What do you say now? The captain thought for a moment, scratching his head, and then he shook his head. It's not possible, he said. My ship, she is too small. You are too big to go inside. Sure, that's just a little thing, said the Sandman. I'll sit on top. So I will. I'll ride your cucumber all the way back home. Well? The Russian captain seemed a little happier with that. Dada, he said, all right, we will try it. But you've got to give him lots of food, said Polly, or else he'll go to sleep, and then he'll fall off. He likes bladderwrack sandwiches, that's seaweed. If he pushed my ship off the sand, said the captain, then I promise you I give him all the seaweed sandwiches he wants. It took a little time to get the turtles ready. First they had to have their milk and soggy crust, and then they had to be roped up. Meanwhile, the Sandman asked for his breakfast, and so Polly made up the sandwiches. He settled down on the sand and stuffed himself with crunchy bladderwrack sandwiches, and then he emptied the churn of milk down his throat. I waited for his burp, and when it came, it was just as loud and long as I hoped for. And when Polly giggled, we all did, including Auntie Larry, and that surprised me. The Sandman stood up. Well, I better be on my way then, he said, and he thanked us all and promised he'd come back and see us sometime. And Polly gave him her tooth that had fallen out in the night. For luck, she said, and he scooped her up and kissed her on the cheek. Aren't you the darling girl, he said, and then he set her down beside me. He winked at me and said, I'll be seeing you. Then he whistled to the turtles to take the strain, and the engine started up. He splashed out through the shallows to the submarine, spat on his hands, took a deep breath, and began to push. Nothing moved. He pushed again, harder this time, blowing his cheeks into great balloons. On board, the Russian sailors looked down over the sides and shook their head. The sea churned, the turtles paddled, and the Sandman huffed and puffed, and still the submarine would not shift. Come on, boys, he bellowed, but I could see the turtles could do no more than they were doing. Gee up, cried Polly. She was jumping up and down and cheering them on. Then the Sandman was calling for us to help. We all of us ran down into the water and threw ourselves against the hull of the submarine. Polly arrived last because she tripped over, and I swear the moment she touched the submarine, it moved. And then I saw the Sandman's face. He was smiling down at me. "Oh, she's terribly strong, that girl," he said. "Who would have thought it? She's gone and done it all by herself." You could see Polly believed every word he said, and I knew then we'd never hear the last of it. As the submarine inched away the seaweed, the sailors cheered, and then she was free of the sand, and the Sandman vaulted on board. The rest of us went on pushing until the sea was too deep for us to go any further, and by this time the Sandman was sitting astride the bow and waving back at us. And Captain Sergei Ivanovich Prokofiev took off his hat and led his crew in the three ringing Russian hurrahs, and they were all for us. "Shivery," said Polly, and I knew what she meant. Auntie O'Leary thought she meant something else and rushed her back out of the water before she caught a chill. By the time we reached the cliff path, the submarine was already way out beyond Coracle Rock, the three giant turtles still out in front, and across the water I was almost sure I could hear singing. Perhaps it was the Sandman, or perhaps it was the Russian sailors. Maybe it was both. We'd all had hot baths and were sitting drying our hair in the kitchen when we heard Uncle Rob's car draw up outside. "Who's going to tell them?" said Auntie O'Leary. We all know the answer to that. "Me!" said Polly, and of course she did. They had hardly set a foot inside the door before she started. Auntie O'Leary, Dadsy and I, we just looked at the floor and listened. "And I pushed it out all by myself," said Polly. "Honest!" She had finished at last. Uncle Rob smiled and patted her on the head as Barry limped across the room towards me on his crutches. "I've had my stitches out, Mike," he said, pointing to his forehead and ignoring Polly completely. "But it's true," Polly cried. "Cross my heart." "Here are my stitches. I kept them," said Barry, and he handed me a little envelope. Doctor gave them to me. They were bits of dark cotton inside. Bit disgusting, I thought. "No concussion," said Uncle Rob. "Doctor says that he can do whatever he likes. Plaster comes off in 6 weeks." "There you are then," said Auntie O'Leary. "That's nice." Barry was standing right in front of me. "What happened to you then?" I shrugged my shoulders. "I got wet," I said. "Pushing out the Russian submarine, I suppose," said Barry. "Yes," I said, but I didn't dare look him in the face. "That's quite a story, Polly," said Uncle Rob. "You get better and better. Just for a moment, you had me half believing you." And then Auntie O'Leary spoke up. "I know this is hard to believe," she said, "but I'm afraid it's all quite true. Everything Polly has said, every word of it." Uncle Rob and Barry tried to laugh it off at first. Then for some time no one said anything. You could hear the kitchen clock ticking loudly in silence. "Don't be a cuckoo," said Uncle Rob. "Fair play now." "True as I'm sitting here," said Dadsy. "Everything. The Sandman, the turtles, and the submarine, and Captain Sergei Ivanovich Prokofiev. He's the lighthouse keeper's grandson, just like Polly said. I took some photos. True now." "What is this?" said Uncle Rob. "An April Fool in August?" "Mike?" said Barry, and this time I had to look at him. "Well," I said, trying to find the words. "Lot of rot," said Uncle Rob, and there was an edge to his voice now. "Stories is stories, but that's all they are. You shouldn't go encouraging her like that." "But Rob," said Uncle O'Leary, trying to interrupt him, and so did Dadsy, and so did Polly. Uncle Rob would have none of it. "Joke's a joke," he said firmly, "and this one's not funny anymore." Polly went on protesting, and then Uncle Rob got really angry. "I don't want to hear any more about it, understand? I've got work to do. There's a fence down Whaltooth Beach. I'll take the tractor. You coming, Barry?" "Yes, I'm coming, said Barry, and I could hear the cold anger in him. "Load of rubbish," he muttered as he limped out after Uncle Rob. "Pegleg," Polly shouted after him, and she turned to Auntie O'Leary. "They don't believe us, Mum. Why won't they believe us?" Her eyes were filled with tears. "Don't you worry, Polly," said Auntie O'Leary, putting her arm around her. "They'll believe us when the photos come out. They'll have to, won't they, Dadsy?" Dadsy was taking the camera down off the mantelpiece. He turned around. "I'm afraid there won't be any photos," he said. "I just remembered. There's no film in it." Uncle Rob and Barry never came back for lunch, and I was upstairs in the bathroom reading one of Barry's Tintin books, the one about the Yetis, when I heard the tractor come rattling into the yard. There were footsteps running across the cobbles, and then Uncle Rob was calling excitedly. "Quickly!" he shouted. "Come quick!" I pulled up my trousers and ran downstairs, taking the steps 2 at a time, still doing up the zip. Not easy, that. As I came through the sitting room, I caught a glimpse through the window of Auntie O'Leary and Polly and Dadsy, herring outside across the fields towards the cliffs. Beyond them was a column of black smoke rising into the sky. Uncle Rob came in and then doubled up with laughter, and Barry behind him, giggling like I've never seen him. Uncle Rob helped Barry down to the sofa and then collapsed into his armchair. They were both howling uncontrollably. "You've been burning off the bracken?" I asked, but neither of them were capable of replying. "What's going on?" I said, and I was beginning to feel a bit left out, and I didn't like it much. "We fix them," said Barry, and they managed to fit fits of rib-aching laughter to tell me about it. "We fixed them good, didn't we, Dad?" "We did," said Uncle Rob, still wheezing. "We did, with a little help from the dragon, of course. You know, the blood-red one, the spiky one. Funny thing, though, not a sign of the dragon was there. We looked everywhere, didn't we? Knocked on his door and he never came out." And they were both heaving again. "We thought, didn't we, Barry? We thought maybe he'd gone shopping." Barry went on when he could. "You'll never guess what we did. We made this pile of driftwood, didn't we, Dad? And then, Dad, we poured on the diesel. And then we threw on a couple of old tyres." "Blackens the smoke something terrific, that does," said Uncle Rob. "Dragons make black smoke, remember?" said Barry, "just like Dadsy said they do." "Then we get back here as quick as we can to tell him. You tell it like you told him, Dad. Dad was brilliant. Mike, you should have seen him." Uncle Rob was on his feet and pointing. "Quick," I said. "Down on Whaltooth," I said. "He was down there fencing, the 2 of us, and Barry here. He chucks a stone into the cave. He didn't mean any harm, did you, Barry? A moment later, there's this roaring, and there's this thick black smoke billowing out of the cave. I've never seen nothing like it. And then comes out a spiky blood-red dragon, belching fire and smoke. Well, he didn't hang about, I tell you. Last we saw of him, he was coming up through the bracken, and half of the hillside was on fire. Hurry now, I told them, but I needn't had. I'd never seen Dadsy move so fast, going like the clappers he was when I last saw him, and Polly was all leaping up and down and screaming, "The dragon's come true! The dragon's come true!" And he sat down again, groaning with laughter and wiping the tears from his eyes. "Good one, eh, Mike?" said Barry. "Good as any daft Russian submarine." But I'd heard something outside. I was looking out the window. Polly was running back across the fields, looking over her shoulder and falling over herself all the time. And then I saw Auntie O'Leary dragging Dadsy along by his hand. They were in a hurry too. And as I watched a spiky blood-red dragon come lurping along behind them, breathing out orange flames and black smoke and setting fire to the bracken as it came, I didn't know quite what to say. Well, I didn't want to sound stupid. You can understand that, can't you? So looking them straight in the eye and with my voice as calm as I could make it out, I just said, "You're not going to believe this." And that is the end of The Sandman and the Turtles. I know, story time is a little bit longer today, but I really wanted to finish that book. Tomorrow we're going to start another story, still on our Beside the Seaside theme, and we're going to read this story. This is called Oliver and the Seawigs, and I really look forward to starting that with you tomorrow. So I shall see you then to start our new book.